Hello and welcome to today's session of Spec Stepping. In today's episode, we are going to be stepping through the Encrypted Media Extensions API. Now, this is for if you're consuming media from a third party, typically, and you have an encryption process because that third party wants to protect their intellectual property, their IP, and whatever video they've created. So they provide it through SSL that's required, as you can see right here in the documentation. And so this API allows us to control that playback programmatically rather than just simply putting it in a video tag. We'll use the video tag, but we're going to control this programmatically with the encrypted and decrypted type of events. So first, let me show you the demo and then we'll jump to the code. So here I've got this little video tag here that I'm not playing or anything. I'm waiting for. I've got it wired up to this button here. And so I've got the just a little log of just logging to the page here. And so when I click this button, it's going to load the free Big Bunny trailer video that you probably have seen before out there. It's used in a lot of video demos. And so it's using and this is kind of simulating that encryption. There's a little more detail in this when you're doing this for a production application, but I just want to simulate this. So when I click this, see a video source is set to this video source out of the UK. And here's the log. So the media keys were linked to the video. It's encrypted and then set on the video element. So there's this key exchange system that occurs. And then the keys were obtained, created it. So we have this encryption decryption process that can occur. So if you use this API, if you're serving up a video, you can provide keys and the consumer can decrypt that video as it's going and it will play and you can play this little video. So let me jump to the code here. Now the HTML is pretty straightforward. I just have a video tag. I have a div tag that just, I'm going to put that status message in. That's right here. And then I have the buttons. And then I just have a pre-tag that I have a log area. That's where I show this green log there. And then I just have some styling. It's just provide some, make it look pretty. But the real magic happens in here. And so I try to, like usual, if you've watched my videos before, try to comment these pretty deeply to help you out so you can play with this. First, I grab all the pieces of my HTML. Then I grab in the constant of, I call it a key system, the clear key EME. So that's for testing and unencrypted content. So if it were a real one, so I'm using this for testing, I have the note here about the alpha and the play ready. So, and then I have a placeholder for the video URL so that I'm using. Could be any one you use, but this is a pretty common one for testing out there. And then I'm simulating this with using ClearKey because I don't have a real encryption video out there that I'm using. I'm using a simulator because I'm trying to simulate this API process. So I have simulated initialization data of these keys, of what the key is and what the encoded key ID is and encoded key and all that stuff. So those are just simulators. And then I have the text encoder. I have a buffer. If you've seen my encode API, you've seen that in action before. Then I have just a little helper function that updates status that does the logs the status pieces right here. And then I have a log message that I'm logging out. And then I'm base64 URL to array buffer. So for base64 encoding. So I have some padding. I have am going through and using some regex replacing. Then the ATOB. If you're not familiar with ATOB, that's beyond the scope of this video. But when you're using base64 encoding, encryption, decryption, ATOB is pretty handy. And so this just basically takes it and into the array buffer and for encoding, decoding process. And then the EME workflow. So I'm starting the process. So I disable the button. It starts the process. Down here, it's starting the process. And then if it's in the navigator, I always like to check to see if functionality exists, although this one's in, I think, every browser. In fact, let me just double check. Yeah, it's in every current browser except Node.js, which it wouldn't be in Node.js. But it's in every browser, but I just always like to check just to make sure. So step one, I request to see if the browser supports a specified key system, if I have media system key access. So I have a config here, and then I'm grabbing the capabilities here with the codecs, and then I'm logging message attempting to request media key access. So it logs it out there. I think I ran out of space on my log. And then successfully obtained the key. And then I log it out. It's obtained, creating media keys. Okay. So that's part of this whole media keys process right here. So, oh, okay, here, right here. I logged it backwards. I thought I logged it from the bottom. So it's starting the process, attempting, successfully got it, creating the media keys, and media keys are created. Okay. So here's where they're actually created right here. I have this create media keys method that's part of the API. I update the status that they've been created. And then I'm grabbing that video element and I'm setting the media keys equal to my media keys that I have. So this is that key exchange that has to occur for encryption, decryption. And now, side note, if you're working with a third-party provider with encrypted video, chances are you're accessing their API and you have some sort of process where you get the keys to use, just like when you're logging using user encryption log keys. So for logging in and logging out, that sort of thing, and other encryption decryption process, it's always this handshake that occurs. So I'm updating the status and the log message. Media keys linked to video. That's one right here. And then I have this encrypted event. So once it's encrypted, then I can fire up. So I log in encrypted event fired. And then if other and updating the status, encrypted content detected, initializing decryption. And again, I'm somewhat simulating this process, but I'm initializing the data and then the data type, CNC, I used that earlier. Again, if you're working with a third-party API with these videos, you'll have to see what their process is for the session IDs and the data type and all that stuff. But I'm creating the session and then have on message. I'm listening for the message event of the key session. So where it requests a license from the licensing server. So if you're paying for this third-party content, you will have a license. So you've got to request that license typically and get it back. And now it might be a part of the key exchange process, depending on how they have it set up, but you'll need to have that license, obviously, to request it and access it. So I have this note in a real application. We would send that message to a license server. It would return a license. Then we'd pass it to the session update so that our session would be validated by our license so that we would be able to play the video that's protected. And so I'm simulating here the server response from the license. And so I'm just parsing through the message with the decoder and then logging license request content out here. And then our simulated data already contains the keys. So we respond with that. So put that into the buffer. And then I'm awaiting the update of the session with the license response right here. And again, this should happen pretty quickly because it's all locally. Otherwise, there may be a little bit of a delay if I'm going from a third-party licensing server. And then I'm listening for all the status changes that happen to this key based on acquiring the key, attaching my local key with the server key, getting the server license all together. So I'm listening for all that information right here. Okay. And then for each one, I'm going over it and grabbing the ID, setting it to usable, or if it's expired, that sort of thing. It's always a good thing to check that whether the keys are usable or not. If there's a time frame, if there's a time limit when if they expire and you have to reprocess the keys. So a lot of third-party APIs have some sort of a timeout mechanism on that so that they don't open the door for everything for unlimited amount of time. But if the keys are valid, then I play my video. So I just call the play method on the video element. And then I generate a license request for the session and log the message, set the video source and load it, load the video source, load it, update it. And then here again, I'm doing some of this because I'm simulating a little bit of this. So if it isn't encrypted, if the video isn't encrypted and doesn't trigger encrypted, we manually generate this for the demo flow. So now this may come in handy if you're working for a third-party AP with a third-party API where some of the content's encrypted and some of it's not. You may have to have an if-then type of thing for the ready state or encryption testing, depending on how they have their set up. So what I'm doing is I'm manually triggering this after a 3 second little delay here, just to kind of demo this. So waiting for the content. I have some try catch there. And then to start this whole process, I have a wired up a event listener to click to the button and I can clear the log. And then I have the initial setup where everything's set up and ready to go with the initial add event listener with the DOM content load. Pretty handy little event to know. So let me just try this again now that we've walked through really quickly the content. So I'm waiting for that user interaction. Say document loaded, start e process, load video to begin. So I click it, boom. It went through and ran everything. So again, let me just stop this here. So this is a quick overview. I realize that, and this is not maybe an API you're going to use all the time, but if you're ever working with third-party content that you're paying for, that they are trying to protect their IP and they have encryption, chances are they're going to have documentation on this. And this makes it really easy to do that encryption decryption process where you're decoding, encoding that for buffering and playing their stuff. Again, they'll probably have documentation on this, but pretty handy API. And if you are someone who's providing third-party video and encrypted media, then this is probably something you're going to want to work into your API so that consumers can consume it, could use the licensing process that you set up and all that stuff. So if you have any questions, I know this is a really quick overview, but if you have any questions, let me know. And if not, happy stepping.